Okay, you are now live.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Transportation Commission for March 1st, 6 p.m. We can start by calling the roll. We will go first. Syed Haider. And please remember to state where you were calling in from.
Sure. I'm here and I'm calling from East Lansing. I think I'm in Clinton County.
Okay, thank you. Julie Rojeski.
Hi, here calling in from East Lansing, Ingham County.
Troy Fassbender.
Here from East Lansing in Ingham County.
John Boyce.
I'm here attending virtually from East Lansing, Michigan.
Joel Lichty.
Joel Lichty calling in from East Lansing, Ingham County.
Joshua Cooper.
I am here attending virtually from East Lansing, Michigan and Ingham County.
Scott McCormick.
I'm here from East Lansing in Ingham County.
All right. Thank you very much. We have quorum. Turn that over to you, Scott.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. We have approval of the minutes and then communications from the audience, the adoption time limit for public comments. The business agenda was a presentation by the neighborhood resource team, discussion of invitees and topics for 2021, discussion of the important transportation mobility issues. Unfinished business was the Highland Avenue speeding concerns, committee report on traffic calming action, and any reports from the chair and the board, and any announcements. With that, I would like a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'm going to do the same thing with every motion, and I'm going to ask if there's any objection to changing the motion to by acclamation, which is asking, does anyone have a nay vote? If no one has a nay vote, it's approved unanimously and we don't have to actually go through every person. So is there any objection to changing the motion to by acclamation? Hearing none, the motion is approved. The agenda is approved. Next item on the list was the approval of the minutes. And one item to remember on that one, we approved the adoption of a 5-minute time limit for public comments for communications from citizens and the public for all electronic meetings. That was the major agenda item report on the first part. The second part, oh, excuse me. So that's the first part. Is there any, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Is there any objection to changing the motion to by acclamation? Hearing none, the item is approved. The next item is the written communications, the adoption of a time limit for public comments, which I just read. We had discussed that at our last meeting. There wasn't any stated objective. Before we can have a discussion, do I have a motion to adopt the time limit to 5 minutes?
Motion.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Do we have any further discussion? Any objection to changing the motion to by acclamation? Hearing none, the motion is approved to change the time limit to 5 minutes long. The next item is the presentation by the neighborhood resource team. And that would be Brad Phillips. Yes, wait a minute, Nicole. Go ahead, you're on mute.
Yes. Do we have any communications from the audience?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yep. And just to go back one step further, we did not have any written communications on our end, but I would welcome anybody else on the Transportation Commission, if they did receive any written communications, to share them with the group at this time.
I received none.
Okay, so we'll turn it over to Brad if we have any callers for communications.
We've got one.
Give me one moment. Caller with the last three digits, 396, you may address the commission.
Good evening. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Mary Heiderson. I live at 343 Highland Avenue in East Lansing. Good evening. I'm joining the commission tonight to address the ongoing speeding issues on Highland Avenue, which I'm sure you're all familiar with the subject. I just wanted to say briefly that I appreciate the motion to add on an additional 3 minutes to the communications from the audience time period.
Can I interrupt you? Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Of course.
We do have item 5 on our agenda today is the Highland Avenue speeding concerns. Would you be able to stay around for that?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. I will be happy to do that. Shall I just hang on with, and what happens with the unmuted business? Do you need to shut me down and then pull me back in?
No, it's open, but
Okay.
we'd ask you to.
Okay, I'll be quiet until that portion. Thank you. I'll be happy to stay on.
Nicole, how do you mute the phone?
I don't know.
No, I'm asking Nicole. Nicole, how to mute the phone?
*6.
*6. And then to unmute it, she would.
*6.
Okay. So we'll start with you when we get to that agenda item.
Of course. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, back to Brad Phillips.
That's the only call that we have. Do you want me to just leave her on as a panelist right now, or?
Yes, unless there's an objection from any other on the commission. Hearing
That's
none.
the only call we've got.
Okay. So now we'll move to the presentation by the Neighborhood Resource Team.
Well, good evening. I'm Lieutenant Chad Pride with the East Lansing Police Department. The neighborhood resource teams have actually were around in the late 1990s, early 2000s. And over time, the neighborhood resource teams started to fade away. However, Chief Johnson and his community policing efforts has brought these neighborhood resource teams back to the East Lansing Police Department. Now, there's two neighborhood resource teams. There's an east team and a west team. The 0 point of the city is Abbott Road. So anything east of Abbott is the east team. Anything west of Abbott is the west team. There are command staff that are the head of these teams. Within the team, there are also officers, our neighborhood resource specialists, our social workers, detectives. And then on top of that, we have also sent out and requested people from within the city. So whether it's planning, Department of Public Works, the fire department, the fire marshal, housing, we requested representatives from other city resources as well. And basically what this is to help us do and help solve problems in the city, whether it's traffic related stuff, kind of like why I'm here tonight, or if it's housing issues that we can assist with and other resources can assist us with. But the neighborhood resource teams are there to tackle issues that come up in the city that we can try to mitigate or eliminate. We've so far, again, had multiple traffic issues that we've tackled. Some kits are currently open, like the Highland Kensington kit that we have open. We've closed out other kits. We had a kit up on Blanchette that we just recently closed out. We also have other kits that aren't traffic related. So the neighborhood resource teams are there to try to assist the community members, as well as other areas in the city, other resources, try to assist them with tackling some of these problems as well. Any questions?
I guess if I had a question, it would be if we're looking at speeding issues in neighborhoods and wherever this, we see the city put these, put the, Scott, help me with what you put out for traffic counts and traffic speeds. That if the police has the staff to basically check on that and see where we need your patrol for certain times of the day, or where we may see speeding issues. Do you have the staff to handle that?
We do. We can, we assign specific officers in our shift to go to those spots where we are seeing the traffic issues. I can tell you down on Highland in Kensington so far, since mid-December, when this was brought to our attention, we've allocated almost 17 hours of patrol down there. We're usually doing it a half hour at a time. We not only having a patrol car sit down there, but we also have our neighborhood resource specialists that go down there or go in those areas and sit on the stop signs, because everybody comes around the corner, comes up to that stop sign, and they see that patrol car and they slow down prior to getting there, or they come to a stop completely. We have the neighborhood resource specialists go down there in an unmarked car so they can count cars to actually see which ones are not stopping for that stop sign. And how much of an issue is this, and what else can we do to try to stop people running the stop signs in those certain areas. So we do have the resources to go down there or to go to these spots and to try to stop what's occurring. It's just going to be one of those things is how much are our officers going to be available during the peak times of our calls, which are usually for our day shift or later in the day. Are they going to be able to get down there for a full 30 minutes to an hour type of thing? But so far what we've seen is, much time as we spent down there, we've had the time to be able to allocate to those spots.
During the 17 hours that your staff has patrolled, have you found anything out of the ordinary that's worth mentioning?
So, we've had speeds down there. The highest that has been calculated so far is 31 miles an hour. It's a 25 mile an hour zone. Majority of the time when you have the patrol car down there, you're going to get cars that you're going to see at the 25 mark. When we received the information, when the chief, I think, came to one of the first meetings and got the information, and there was some of the traffic data showed that there was cars up in the 40s. We haven't seen that when you put a patrol car down there. But who's to say that that's not occurring? The stop signs, when we go down there, they stop. Everybody that turns the data over to me with my spreadsheet, they're saying, yeah, they stop. The NRSs, when they're down there in an unmarked car, they're sending me data saying I have 4 rolling stops, 2 not stopped at all. So I'm getting that data that is showing that there is some traffic issue down there when it comes to that. And we're just, if the more we can put people down there, hopefully you're going to change the pattern of the driving coming through there. And that's what we're trying to do. This kit, I expect to be open for a while. I actually, when I wrote the kit, I believe it was June by the time I wanted to look at possibly closing this kit. I would actually like to see another thing of traffic data come from down there, especially when it starts to get a little bit warmer and there's more people that are coming through the neighborhood.
So
If you don't
Chad,
mind changing, do you want to follow up on Highland, or do you want to change the subject?
I just wanted to ask a question. Chad, what is an NRS? Educate me.
Neighborhood resource specialists. So
Okay.
these are civilian personnel that work for the police department that can handle some of these things for us where we're lightening the load off of our back a little bit for having us go down there.
Okay.
We put them down there and then they're able to tell us. And it's one of those things that neighborhood resource specialist can work with the neighborhood associations as well to try to, either put something out in their Facebook or help them with whatever issue they're having in their neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Julie, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for joining our meeting. I appreciate it. One of the recurring challenges that keeps appearing on our agenda are parking disputes, sometimes parking between neighbors, sometimes parking preferences that are not being honored and they want to see changed. And so I'm hoping you can spend a minute helping us understand how your organization looks at parking disputes or parking preferences, or however you want to characterize it, and what kind of strategies that you have in place, because I imagine, I mean, this is East Lansing, parking disputes are sort of evergreen around here. And so first of all, I'm extremely grateful that we have your organization to help support this work, because I'm just grateful for that. So I'd be curious if you could share some thoughts on how best to solve these kinds of problems.
Well, if you're talking about a parking dispute of whether somebody's parked in the road or blocking somebody's driveway, or
well, I'm thinking, it's a more, usually by the time it arises to our attention, it's a pattern of behavior. Like, for example, one of the more recent ones was the sorority was parking along the street, and so people, one, didn't like it, two, saw it as a safety concern, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, that was one that we had to vote to resolve. Similarly, another dispute that was brought to our attention that has just kept coming back is a rental next to a permanent homeowner, and they move their car out and they park at the end of her driveway. And she said that makes it hard to back out. And so we're talking things of those nature, not just somebody's parked illegally or someone's parked poorly one time. Can you send somebody out to address it? But ongoing things of a parking nature that residents don't like.
And that's something that we can utilize our neighborhood resource specialists. If it doesn't come to an issue where we need to get parking and code enforcement, our PACE officers involved. Okay. We can obviously, if they're parking in a manner that is illegal, then yeah, we'll have our parking and resource parking officers or PACE officers come out. But if it's more of a issue of where they're parking and it's not in a legal parking spot, that's something where we could utilize our neighborhood resource specialists, because they can help try to mitigate those issues between the neighbors and the issue that they're having with the parking.
Okay, so if we have an item that we feel is appropriate to that, what's the protocol to communicate that? Is that through you to the?
If it's something specifically that deals with where it's not a PACE issue and it's going to be something where our neighborhood resource people can would take control of. Sergeant Adam Park is their direct supervisor, but if it's something that is occurring, you can always call our police desk, and the cadet can pass this information along to the NRS people that are working. Okay. Now, they are not 24 hours. They are usually 8 to about 8 o'clock at night, depending, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So if it's after 8 p.m. and you call the police desk, most likely they're going to send a PACE officer out there to look and see if this is a illegal parking issue.
Okay. And for our protocol, for the commission's protocol, Nicole, does that go through you? Or does it go through me? Or how would an issue get communicated?
So is it coming to the commission first before it goes there?
Yes, like the recent example we had 2 months ago when we were talking about the parking issue that Julie was describing. And we decide that we need to push that to the neighborhood resource specialist. How do we as a commission communicate that to Lieutenant Pride's office? Is that through you? Or is it through?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I think there's some things that we can head off and say, hey, have you tried our neighborhood resource specialist first? And, work with their team to fit, to see if it can be resolved at that point before even, bringing it to a commission. And it depends on the person that do they want to bring it before the commission for maybe some other agenda, to be able to help some other issue in their neighborhood, or is it something that really does fall to the neighborhood resources team?
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any other questions?
Scott House here. I just want to make a comment. So the neighborhood resource teams, this is a new entity, so they're still developing their capability. And, you know, we're excited from the public works side about what they will bring to the table and what we can talk about for traffic calming and other things. But if everything, it's going to take time to figure out how things work and build that relationship and get them familiar with what the commission does and, you know, leverage their resources. That's all I got. Thank you.
So the last thing I had to ask you, Chad, is there anything that you would like from us?
Well, I guess from a police standpoint, it's just the feedback. I mean, what we can do to help you guys when it comes to some of the issues that you guys are dealing with. I think that's, it's good for us to know, from a police standpoint and a traffic standpoint, the issues that you guys are seeing, because we don't hear everything. So it's good to get that feedback from you guys when you have these traffic issues. What we can do to help and if there's something that we can provide to you guys.
Nicole, would it be appropriate and acceptable once the minutes are approved to send them to Lieutenant Price? So that that's our easiest case of making someone aware of what we're dealing with.
Absolutely. We can make sure, as they're uploaded onto iCompass that, they get included.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Julie.
Okay, yeah. So taking a step back from the specific needs of our commission, I'm curious if you could just give us some context about how would you describe the impact if, when this becomes a resounding success and, as you think about the big picture impact on the community, how will you know from the work that you're doing and the position that you occupy if this the NRCs are being effective?
Yeah, how do you define success?
Correct.
The NRTs or the
I'm sorry. Yeah, NRTs or whomever.
Okay.
Right. As a team, right. And you're, helping lead this team. How will you know when the work is successful?
Well, I would hope that we'll see it successful when, we're able to work through these kits and have all these resources and enough to tackle these problems and mitigate the problems. I don't think there will always be a problem that we will have to address. But if we can bring in all these resources and understand what resources each can provide, I think that will help us be more successful with solving these problems. And I think that's where I think success will come into play is, as again, we just started this back going again, and it's what can the Department of Public Works provide in this? What can our fire marshal provide? What can planning provide? Once we start realizing the actual true information that they can provide, I think that will help us be successful in closing these kits out and in making these teams successful.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right, well, hearing none, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your participation and more than welcome to sit through the rest of the meeting if you'd like.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda was the discussion of invitees and topics for 2021 meetings. We had a list of 6 invitees, the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission, the Meridian Township Transportation Commission, the State Police Department, Lansing, but we didn't define whether that was Lansing Governance or Lansing Police, MDOT, and then Shanna Dryham, who is the director of the policy research labs for the Michigan Municipal League. And I actually think we already have those in the right order. But I want to open that up to the commission to talk about if you see there's some other thing. And I also want to get some clarity on when we said Lansing, who are we talking about in Lansing?
Pretty sure that was the Lansing Transportation. I don't know if it's called a commission or whatever board addresses and examines transportation related issues in the city.
Yeah, I think it's a board.
So Lansing actually does not have one.
Does Meridian Township have one?
Yes.
We have a planning commission, yes.
But-
Meridian Township has a transportation commission. Lansing has a public service commission that does not necessarily touch on the issues such as this.
Okay, so
So would that be Lansing Police?
Yeah, there was a few things going out there, and I was just trying to compile everything that people said at the last meeting. So I don't remember exactly which one that was, but overall, this is a working list, obviously based on the comments that were received at the last meeting. And obviously, if we want to secure somebody for the next meeting, we should decide on who is next and see if we can get them to participate in the next meeting, and probably having a second would be good in case people are not available.
Well, since he's here, I guess I'd like to ask Chad, of that list, the Tri-County Planning, Meridian Township, the State Police, somebody from Lansing, MDOT, and the Municipal League, who would you think would be the priority? Who would be
but while he thinks about that, can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
I don't recall us wanting to engage with the state police. Does anyone I don't remember anyone bringing up them as
The state police were to talk about speed limits.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay,
So
thank you.
So if I were the city of Lansing, I would not want to come talk to the East Lansing Transportation Commission. The Public Service Department engineers might, but I know they're tapped out. Like
Okay.
MDOT would be the better between them and Tri-County. That'd be a good regional focus.
Okay.
A road commission as well, because they have some.
Okay.
Okay, well then let's do this. Let's move the Lansing whatever down on the list until we have some collective clarity, and we can talk about this at our next meeting of whether or not there's some organization or group or entity that we would think would benefit us to talk to.
Let's take them off the list for now and replace them with the Meridian Township Transportation Commission, because I do think it would be
Meridian Township's already on there.
Okay.
I don't think we ought to take them off, but because we have, intercity travel, we share, a lot of things, but let's think about who would be the appropriate entity and add that to the agenda next month to talk about, is there someone in Lansing that would be beneficial to talk to? Scott,
And again,
offhand? Oh, sorry, Nicole, go ahead.
I was going to say, and again, people can continue to, email me their ideas, and I will just add it to this, list here that was prepared for the agenda, just to have it an ever continuing ongoing list of people that we could invite to meetings.
And if I may, I would add possibly Indy Kilpatrick, Public Service Director for Lansing. He'd be a good one. Plus, he's a true transportation engineer.
Good. Let's annotate Lansing with that one, because I like that idea. And any other discussion? If not, we'll move on to the next topic. Hearing none.
I
Go ahead.
guess. So are we going in this order of how you would like invitees for the next meetings? Like, you would like to be able to see Tri-County Regional Planning Commission come next. And we need a little direction, I guess, from you guys.
Yeah, I've actually worked with them, and they were working on a project with MDOT that I was asked to participate on. I think the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission, because it's a planning commission and because it's Tri-County, would take precedence over Meridian Township, but I defer to the commission for your opinion. Okay, hearing none then, let's see if we can't contact the TCRPC to speak at our April event. Hopefully that's not April 1st. And then I figure the rest of the list we can address each month as we meet in order to determine what's the most relevant one to bring in next.
So Scott, will you be reaching out, or would you need assistance from us to reach out?
I just need to know who the point of contact.
How about we reach out, because we have those points of contact, if you're okay with that, Scott.
That's perfect.
Because then, and also I would make the recommendation that we reach out to all these folks and see who's available when, because some of them, state police is going to take long lead time. MDOT's going to take a couple months. So there could be some, just start filling in gaps.
I agree. Any disagreement on that? Okay. Moving on to the next item, we have an ongoing item that's discussion of important transportation or mobility issues in East Lansing. We didn't have any come up at the last meeting. We've had them come up in the past about issues of speed changes during Sunday for church service, particularly when there's a lot of people that are out walking. We tended to defer that off because no one was out walking in the winter. Nicole, did you get any others added? Does anyone have any to bring up?
I have a couple of issues, but I'd like to bring those up for board member comments again.
Okay, we can do that now.
Well, so concerning pedestrians again, I'm concerned that the intersection of Abbott and Albert with that missing pedestrian signal, there was a comment, or it's listed in the minutes, that intersection may be closed. Does that mean for pedestrians, or where were we at with that on that missing signal?
Yeah, we are still working and we are making some headway with the developer on that pedestrian signal. And the indication of a portion of that being closed, it would be closed for pedestrian access. So they provided a traffic control plan to close off the north and south crossing and the east-west crossing on the west side and the south side of the intersection to be able to go around, the missing pedestrian crossing. At the time that they proposed that, it was very sign heavy because it needed to be for that type of closure. And there's really nowhere to put signs at this point. When we had a lot of snow, obviously, thankfully it is melting. But at this point, we went back to them and we actually reached out to the board and asked them, or that would be Lansing Board of Water and Light, and said, so if you guys have something happen to a pedestrian signal, what do you do to be able to rectify this? And one of their options was to install a temporary wood pole and power it overhead to be able to install that temporary pedestrian signal. Or he said kind of our last option is closing it to pedestrians. Another point for us is when we close, both the west side and the south side of that intersection, there's a strong possibility, I'll say it this way, that people are not going to follow that anyway. So working with the developer, they are working with the Board of Water and Light to get that temporary solution installed. And, it's kind of a back and forth, they push the closure. We asked them to install the temporary signal. They are going to start with the actual signal installation on April 1st.
Aren't we concerned that the northwest corner may be under construction when the credit union starts excavating there? Isn't it likely that may be closed altogether now? And that's what they're proposing we cross at. So
right. Well, obviously there would be some coordination on that, so that if that was the case, then that, it would be rectified, so that would not close the whole intersection down to pedestrians.
I was down there Sunday, and I'm surprised the number of pedestrians crossing there. Anytime I'm downtown, that's my usual route there, so I do see that. And I'm surprised that we've let it go this long without something temporary. I'm also concerned that when we begin the construction in there, that we're likely to see more closing signs or signs on the sidewalk with angle irons and sandbags that to me are a hazard in themselves. I'd like to see concrete bases on these signs, that some of them will languish there for a year or two during the construction, or a year and a half likely. And I'd like to see something safer than angle irons and sandbags.
Yeah, we have looked at that in the past, and by either securing them into the cement, or even the concrete bases don't have that crash worthiness that is required for the temporary construction signs. So there is a back and forth and a thing that we have to go through to be able to make sure that those are crash worthy, anything that's installed within the right of way.
Well, a lot of them are on sidewalks, so I see it as a peril for pedestrians. I'm not sure about crash worthiness, but I'm concerned that soon we'll have trucks backed up, for excavation and such that happens for the credit union, and where we may still try and get pedestrians through there.
Yeah, part of that sidewalk will be closed for the construction of the credit union on that north side.
So while we're on this, I want to bring up one more topic that I brought up last month about the crossing at People's Church. I'm concerned that at the crossing there for eastbound, you have a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign that carries you through the intersection, although eastbound doesn't seem to be as speedy as westbound, where they're juggling for a single lane. And I'm wondering if that's something we could get on for the city to do a traffic count and traffic speed at some time this summer, to maybe get a look at that for some issues we deal with MDOT, to maybe push that 25-mile-an-hour zone further west for kind of a downtown zone, so we could maybe make that crossing a little safer in that area.
John, if I may, so since that's MDOT, if we were to do any traffic study, we'd have to abide by the results. And if people were doing 35 or 40, we could end up with a 40-mile-per-hour speed limit in that area.
Right.
If not 45. So that could be a discussion with them. And that was a topic of discussion at the state level to question the recent changes. And I don't know where it landed. Maybe I'll have an update by next month, but yeah, we have to tread carefully on any MDOT trunk line and traffic study because it cuts both ways.
All right, that's disappointing to hear, but I'm not surprised. I know that's part of the issue through there.
Okay.
That was sort of one of my concerns too, the crossing at People's Church, but also the crossing at Delta, like with the increased just density in that area. Like, we know it's an MDOT issue. Like, we don't really control like what happens on those roads. So do we need to, like, before we get MDOT on the schedule, Scott House, do we need to do some sort of like prep work to sort of get that on their radar?
We could tell them these are the things we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. And Troy, we've talked to them about Delta before and about, hey, what would it take to get mid-block? And we might be able to do a mid-block unsignalized or an island or something. But, those are discussions that have been had before. And they're like, we're not real okay with this.
I remember.
But it's okay to have, those are good conversations to have with MDOT. And we actually, so the MDOT group here in the region is great to work with. They're great partners. And they've helped us with audible ped signals. They've helped us with many safety improvements. And every time there's a citizen concern, we bring it to them. And a lot of times they'll be, unfortunately, hey, this is what it is, but they'll work with us. And they've been great partners.
Okay. So yeah, as long as we have for that meeting, as long as we let them know that we sort of have like specific concerns, so that they know to take a look at those issues, or at least prep, that would be great.
Okay. Actually, I know Paul Jegba. And so if we ever get to a point that we have a problem with resolving something, we can always elevate it.
No. That'd be bad. We could, but we want to work with the staff, because there's good staff in the area that will work. But you could go, Paul, this is a really stupid policy you guys have. That might be for some high levels, like the traffic limits, but that's out of his control either, too. That was pushed on them.
Okay. Any other comments on this topic? Okay. Moving on. We have the Highland Avenue speeding concerns. I believe, was your name Heidi? Our guest?
Mary,
sorry.
Hello.
There you go. Mary,
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm back.
The Highland Avenue speeding concerns. So
That's the one.
You have
Okay.
the mic.
Thank you. Again, Mary Hyderson, 343 Highland Avenue in East Lansing. Good evening. I'm joining to address the ongoing speeding issues on Highland Avenue. I appreciate the motion that added 3 additional minutes to the communication from the audience time period. Thank you for that. I don't plan on taking 5 minutes, but it's nice not to have to rush and have that 30 seconds, 1 minute kind of thing. So thank you for that. While reading your February meeting minutes, I noticed that I was It read that I asked for an additional speed limit sign heading northbound on Highland. There is currently no speed limit sign heading north, so this would be a first speed limit sign, not an additional sign. Just wanted to clarify that. In addition, I want to say again that there is only one speed limit sign heading south from Grand River Avenue. And this sign is posted on a light pole, which is a full distance of 2.5 blocks from the Grand River Highland intersection. So the traffic must pass through 2 stop signs in quite a distance before there is a posted speed limit sign. And I'm thinking that the enforcement of the speed limit would be more fact-based if a reference could be made to obeying the posted speed, which equals that education thing that I believe it was Scott had mentioned initially with trying to retrain the vehicle traffic. And I'm hoping that the Department of Public Works might consider the request for the speed limit signs, again, heading north and south, and also for the children playing signs. It is our belief that the signage will inform the vehicles and make a positive impact on the safety of our residents. I wanted to address the East Lansing Police Department and thank them for their presence, which we've seen multiple times in the past month, as was reported by Officer Pride on our city street. I would also like to suggest that the time period, which several of us have noticed, the time period for being watchful would be between 12 and 2, Monday through Friday, and that is a particularly busy time period. I don't know whether people are going to lunch or coming back from lunch, but it's been reported to me, and I've noticed it myself, that that is a busier time for speed and stop sign violations than the morning or the evening at the end of the work time period. So, and then that speeding is generally coupled with the disregarding stop signs on a regular basis. And it appears to be cut through traffic, but of course we don't have any statistics or identifications to back that up. I do plan to email Chief Johnson tomorrow about this new time frame of 12 to noon, Monday through Friday, which has been reported. I'm very pleased to hear the neighborhood resource team, the work they've been doing, and it's just, very, very positive as a East Lansing City resident to hear that. I did want to talk about briefly the action plan for the speeding and traffic calming, and I think that's coming up.
Yes.
The next item. I recall the January meeting, there was discussion of updating that action plan by subcommittee. And also I read with great interest the information that Mr. House provided, the city comparisons of Ann Arbor, Lansing, and Grand Rapids, and to provide guidance in updating our city action plan. I read the agenda for tonight's meeting, and I noticed that the agenda item reports on Highland Avenue speeding concerns and that traffic calming action plans were blank. And I was wondering whether there was anything to report. And, back up to the speeding traffic on Highland. 2 different neighbors did report to Chief Johnson and the police department a description and time frame of speeding cars, which they noticed, and that was in February, and they did report it to the police. So it is ongoing. I think that's all I have, except to say thank you very much for your continued response to address the speeding traffic on our city street.
Thank you,
Good
Mary.
evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Back on January 5th, Julie wrote an excellent letter to Chief Johnson related to concerns raised by residents of Highland Avenue and Chesterfield Hills about speeding on their street. And I'd like to kind of just bring everybody up to date with the highlights of that excellent letter. This was in response to concerns that were voiced by residents at a prior meeting, as well as a petition signed by the neighbors. The data showed some troubling trends. Few cars traveling at a high rate of speed, but no clear pattern that reaches a threshold for intervention or creates a mandate on how to best proceed. But recognizing the very real concerns of the residents, that Julie recommended that the issue be added to the list of priorities for the ELPD Neighborhood Resource Team. And she copied the Chesterfield Hill Neighborhood Association presidents and the residents who've spoken about that at the meeting. And that she said that they tentatively recommended a future traffic study to be continued when we can gather information from, quote, normal traffic patterns, whether that's later in spring or fall of 2021, ideally when MSU traffic is at full volume so we can get a baseline of traffic volume. We have to have that data in order to inform possible roads to address the concerns, but we also know that the collaborations between law enforcement and residents are key to finding solutions. So with the understanding of the neighborhood resource teams and their growing impact, hopefully growing impact on the community, I want to now open it up to the board and I want to thank Julie for that excellent letter, but I would like to open it up to the board for your discussions on this. Basically, Julie's recommended that a study be done. I would prefer to see it when we're at full traffic, but I'll defer to Scott and Chad in terms of what you think is the best time to do that. So I'll turn the mic over to any of the commissioners.
It's likely we won't see normal traffic maybe until this fall, would be after September, if then.
Well, to ask Scott and Chad, is doing a preliminary study premature if we did that in the spring?
I'll start. So actually, Nicole and I were communicating here. She has the plan of moving the radar sign back onto Highland, and we can gather some more data there, do a longer study, do it on both sides. Then we can turn that over to police, but that's going to be a couple of weeks out. But from that data that we did see, it was not too far off kilter, and with the police patrol presence, that also has a calming effect because that enforcement changes behavior, whereas signs are only as effective as they are enforced.
Well, and the reason I'm not so concerned about having full traffic is I just got the report from 2020 from Federal Highway Administration, and we actually had, even though we had substantially reduced vehicle miles traveled, there was a definitive increase in the number of deaths because the people that were on the road and were driving faster and more risky, and I'm sure Lieutenant Pride knows this. And that didn't matter whether it was on the expressways or on arterial roads. That was the behavior that everyone had. And so to me, it's like, if we're going to see speeders, we're likely to see them now and be able to more specifically ascertain that, rather than saying 2% of the population do it when it's full traffic versus saying we've got people that have at-risk driving because there's less people on the road. And Chad or Scott, either one of you want to weigh in on that? Go ahead, Nicole.
I mean, that is a good point, Scott, but I think part of the other component to this is the student traffic too. Mm-hmm. You know, and to be able to fully pull them into this puzzle piece, because you know while the residents may be the speeders, I still think that there's going to be an increase from the new residents that are coming into the East Lansing area, and that we're going to get a little different viewpoint, you know, as we get into later.
Well, I agree, but I'm thinking, I like at least what I thought I heard Scott House say, is that it might need to be a longer term study. What is the immediate problem we have with the at-risk drivers? What is the bigger problem we have when we have the student body in place? So maybe it's a two-part study. I don't know that it's either or.
And I agree, the radar sign's easy, but it's not as good as a true study that Nicole was talking about. And the real issue is the students that come by each year and learn the different cut-throughs. And that could be good to let Lieutenant Pride share his viewpoints on this. But before I do that, so to the callers, the residents' request for speed limit signs, those are things we can do. And those are part of escalating things. Those are easier fixes, so we can start working those and see if those help and help the police and help everyone enforce the speed limits. But even though if there's not a speed limit sign on the road, the presumption is all local streets are 25 miles per hour. So that's not a reason, that's not an excuse to speed. So I turn it, Lieutenant Pride.
Yeah, I would say as far as the data, I'm a data-driven type of person. If we have the availability, put the speed limits, those speed signs up, even with less students that we have in the city right now, if we have the availability, let's get that data from what we're seeing right now. And then again, let's get the data in the fall when students are back in the city. But that comes to the availability of those signs and the people that pull that data. So that's kind of how I'll weigh on it. I would like to see, again, this last data I believe was done in the late fall or early fallish. Do one again in the spring and then another one in the fall. I think that'll help us see the information more clear is if we are having an effect on the people that are coming through the neighborhood by having our presence, by having that sign there, and if it's slowing people down.
Okay, and Kim Johnson's response to Julie's letter was that he carbon copied Captain Chad Connolly, who's the senior police administrator assigned to that NRT, and he was going to keep you and your staff appraised on the efforts moving forward. But I don't know what the process is to formally request that a study be initiated in the spring. Scott, can you help us with that?
So yeah, that's gonna fall under Nicole's team. So her as the deputy director, engineering administrator, her team would initiate that. The challenge we frankly have right now is we are down staff in a significant way. So we have many empty cubicles. And so doing any studies, anything beyond getting projects out and meeting regulatory compliance and executing projects, that's a tough one. Nicole, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, we can definitely move forward with the radar signs. We did have a little bit of a hiccup with that because the battery died, and we'd put it out and it worked for about 5 minutes and then it would go dead. So we did get a new battery. I think we put that back out on Kensington to collect data there because that's where it was last. And there's other requests. There's requests on Blanchette. There's requests on obviously Highland, and we need to get it to all of those places as well. But we can continually rotate this. And another component of our budget as we're coming up to next year, which starts in July, we've added another radar sign to be able to do that. The radar signs are fairly straightforward to be able to put out there and obtain the data. And manipulate it a little bit. So it's not just a bazillion numbers on a piece of paper. That's the easy going, and I think part of where we started with this evaluation, and it's still going through the traffic calming action plan of, okay, this is hitting the mark to be able to go for a more formal traffic impact study. If we go to a more formal traffic impact study, that probably won't be our staff. That would probably be something that we might sub out. And that's where I'm thinking would be further down the road into that fall area. But we can continue to get data from here until there. That's kind of the easy part.
Okay. I don't want to call the question. And to clarify, to call the question is a procedure where it's making a motion to look for a second to end discussion on the topic, to move to debate, or to move to vote, or to move to the next topic. So I don't want to go through that. I just want to ask, does anyone have anything else they want to add to this discussion?
I want to clarify just a minute on the radar signs. Is that getting traffic counts and speeds? Is that different than when we see the box lashed to a pole with the hoses with the lines across the street? Are those two different things?
They are two different things, but they do a lot of the same information. We get traffic counts. I think the tubes across will obtain some speeds. This one has the actual radar to tell people, hey, you are going way too fast at this point. And it's a little bit more of a reminder for people to slow down. So it has that component to it.
My understanding is that does not work when they're installed permanently in a neighborhood. as on Bertram, that's not really a calming device?
It loses effectiveness. People become fatigued to it, but it also coupled with, I think with schools being out too, I think people are zooming around. I think the schools were back in and you had those restriction coupled with that, then that might be more of a focus area. Then that would draw some attention.
Any other discussion? Okay, so let's, Nicole, let's leave this item on the agenda, even if it's just for a brief discussion to see if there's any changes going forward.
And that's fine. And to clarify the caller's comment about the agenda item report not having anything, I mean, unless I add, a full background, there's not going to be anything in that agenda item report. It's just how the system works. So I added the agenda item, but we didn't really have an update or anything for that basis, which is why there isn't anything on the action item report.
No, I understand that. You have to have read the January minutes in order to know what was talked about. And maybe that would be the one thing to add is to note that it was just the description of the discussion is in the January, February, whatever mentions going forward.
Yes.
With that, now we're moving to the committee reports. We have the traffic calming action plan update, and who's going to open that for us? I know we had 3 members of that committee.
If you may I kick this off because we haven't talked outside of this, and I don't think we're ready to really have committee reports.
Okay.
At this point, I think we need to partner with the police and other stakeholders as to how does this current policy look? What does it look like from their side with their neighborhood resource teams, and then bring it back for discussion. And the other challenge we have here is under the Open Meetings Act. If we have a subcommittee meeting, we have to treat it like an open meeting.
Right.
And that gets really messy because just doing this is messy. We have two support staff here running, helping to do this, and
okay,
there's nothing easy about that. So maybe we'll talk internally and bring some ideas back for consideration, but that's going to take some time because we're in the midst of budget, and as I referenced before, we have a lot of empty seats. And Nicole, who's supposed to be running $50 million projects, is covering this seat versus her design engineer. And, there's just a lot of things happening where we're all pulling double duty here, and there's no shortage of work.
Just so you know, Nicole, this meeting wouldn't go well at all without you. But while he's here, Chad, let me ask, if there's something that you have that you see as priorities from a police perspective, can you feed that to Scott so that he has, your priorities may be different than his, but I'm looking for where there's areas of alignment.
Yeah, we can pass along the information. Is there anything that I can think of right now? No, but we're always willing to pass along information to try to solve an issue.
And for me, that's the most important thing, is that we have open communication lines for the right point of contacts. May not happen for months, but the one time it does, it might prove extremely beneficial. Any comments from the commissioners on Scott's statement? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to reports from the chair and the board members. I have nothing to report. Joel, do you have anything to report? Okay, Scott.
Scott House?
Scott, yeah, the only other Scott here.
Oh, sorry. Hey, actually, I do have some great news. I wish Tim Potter was on, but MSU was designated as gold status for a bicycle-friendly campus.
Oh, good.
Huge win for them. So great job by the team at MSU. I know there's a lot of MSU connections here that had input on that. As a city, that's something we want to strive for as well, but just outstanding. That's just outstanding news.
That triggers a thought. Should we add someone from MSU police to that list?
You could add MSU transportation or their advisory committee.
Yeah, so let's add them to that list and for the time being. John, did you have any comments?
I think I've made mine. Your comment on road deaths was in the Sunday State Journal on the 7% increase in deaths and a 20% decrease in traffic. So my concern is that MDOT thinks we all need to drive faster.
Okay. Troy. Joshua.
Nope, nothing for me.
Okay.
None at this time. Thank you.
Julie, I'm going to save you for last as your vice chair. Sid.
You know, we talked about that subcommittee, and I think, like Scott mentioned, we did not meet because of this Open Meeting Act thing, I think.
Right.
So what is the? We're not sure where we are going on this, Scott. So if there is any direction on that, you know, if we are waiting for some more information, I hope this thing will open up soon, right? So once we get vaccines, right?
Well, what I would like to see this as is when you talk about traffic calming, you have to address that in the terms of you have to triage it. What are your biggest issues? What are the police issues? What is Scott House's biggest issues? What is Nicole's, from her perspective, seeing as biggest issues? So I think there needs to be this communication link between at least those three entities and this committee to frame out what it is you think the commission should address.
Right. You're saying the priorities, right? So what are the issues with the existing
that are relevant and appropriate?
Yes. I agree. I agree with that.
So we need to. That part of information harvesting can be done linearly. It doesn't have to be an Open Meeting Act because you're doing your information collecting. It's when collectively the three of you sit down to talk about it and decide what's relevant and important for you to do is when you make a public meeting.
Right. And Scott, can we do emails or no? We cannot even do emails. Because
no, you can do email. You can do email to send to the other committee members.
Right.
This is what Chad Pride told me. This is what Scott House told me.
Yeah.
It's not until you collectively sit down together to discuss that information that it needs to be public.
Okay, Scott. So I think let's highlight the concerns in the existing traffic calming plan, and we move from there, right?
Yep, and so some to that effect, Saeed, I think we need to talk with police first, and if other members want to look at ideas, and we could start trading emails. But going back to literally, we have multiple engineering vacancies, so our bandwidth to do much. Right. This is a tough one for us to take on right now in an efficient manner. So this might be a iterative process over a couple of months, just to be
sure.
And I encourage all of the commissioners to communicate with those three individuals or through Nicole or whatever of areas that you think they ought to be looking at and addressing. Okay. Julie.
I don't have anything this week. Thank you.
Okay. Scott, did we do you? Yeah. Okay. Chad, do you have any comments for the group?
I do not. I just appreciate you guys letting me come to the meeting today.
Thank you very much for participating. Emily, do you have anything? You're on mute, Emily.
So Scott, Emily and Brad, they're here to help facilitate. Emily works in the clerks and Brad works in the public works. He runs our accounting, does other things, and coordinates a bunch of stuff in the department. So they'll just be kind of in the background and help.
I understand that, but I always give every participant in the call, even if they're in administrative or support roles, the opportunity to say something for the record. It's okay. With that, are there any other announcements? Yes.
You skipped me, so I'll come.
Oh, sorry, Nicole. Sorry.
As part of this, you had wanted an update on the projects that we're going to have in the city here. So Upcoming, we have started our Evergreen Utility Improvement Project in Albert Avenue Extension. That started off this week, kind of semi full force because it's still a little chilly out there, but that will go probably until June, and that will extend Albert Avenue. And, we'll do some connectivity between the downtown and Valley Court with bike lanes and such. So that's a really great project. The other kind of transportation project that's going on is the MDOT LEP project, which is the Abbott Road from Saginaw to Lake Lansing. That's a 4-to-3 conversion. And that one is set to be out to bid here this week, I think, through MDOT. MDOT facilitates that project, and probably will start construction in May. A couple of the other more core DPW projects are the Glencairn Neighborhood Improvement Project. It's kind of North Lawn to Saginaw, Harrison to Abbott, and we're doing a combination of large diameter sewer, water main, and some road resurfacing within that area. We'll also have Kedzie Sunrise and Collingwood. Those are water main and sewer installations. And Collingwood, we are going to input 3-to-2, I guess, add bike lanes from Grand River to Albert. Okay. We'll also be doing road resurfacing, mill and resurface on Blanchette, Gainsborough, Roseland, Maplewood, and Oakland. And we're going to be replacing some large diameter water main valves along Bircham, which will have some intermediate closures. Probably those last three, the Kedzie, Sunrise, Collingwood, Bircham, and Blanchette, probably won't start until June. With school kicking off again for East Lansing, we'll be cognizant again of the kids traveling to and from school. One other thing to note, those are our core ones for right now for the engineering department. One that has come to our attention that we may be bringing to the Transportation Commission is we have been requested by the Red Cedar development to have access to Renegar Court. If people know where Renegar Court is, it's right off of Michigan Avenue, pretty much right to the west of Brody. It's a really small segment of a road, but if people know where the Red Cedar development is, Montgomery Drain, Red Cedar development, that's in Lansing. And they're asking to use our road for an outlet for one of their parking lots. So we've, I could turn this over to Scott. He's very well versed in this one, but we've asked for a traffic impact study and some additional information. Scott, if you want to add anything at this point.
Yep. So this is kind of controversial, whereas before we thought they were going to put housing behind the East Lansing at the end of there. Now they're proposing a giant commuter lot. So they're going to have a real good, there's not a lot of interest in allowing a lot of traffic down Renegar Court. And so we'll keep you posted as this develops, because the thought process would be that the Transportation Commission would be the forum for public input on this, where the developer would come and make their case in the third-party review. And because this will be of extreme interest to Chesterfield. And we think Highland has cut-through problems now. And if we outlet all that traffic on Renegar Court and they were to do a Michigan left right by Kensington, they're going to be cutting through all kinds of places for that community.
Right. Okay. Nicole, I apologize. My motto is never assume I don't screw up. So I'm sorry I missed you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
And I need a second.
Second.
Any objection to changing the motion to by acclamation? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned at 7:08 p.m. Thank you all. Be safe.
Thank you. Be safe.